Well, it's time for round two of Senseless predictions. We had to come back with a sequel, especially after how well the last one did. At least this time we're covering a league you all might actually care about. Yes, the Premier League is back today. Wonderful. And with the transfer window finally shut, now's the time to release my final predictions. I must start with the caveat that I did predict Leicester to come bottom in their title-winning year, so take all of these with a pinch of salt. Starting off, coming bottom, I've got Burnley. The relegation battle this season should be a tight one, as I don't see any side being as cut adrift as Huddersfield and Fulham were last year. However, someone's got to come bottom, and for me it's Burnley. They've addressed their lack of midfield depth somewhat by bringing in Danny Drinkwater on loan from Chelsea on deadline day, but that won't be enough to offset the loss of Tom Heaton to Aston Villa in net. I'm not convinced either Joe Hart or new signing Bradley Peacock Farrell are ready to replace him. A strong dose of Sean Dyche shithousery will keep them close, but it's a return to the championship for the Clarets. In 19th, I have Sheffield United. The Blades are back in the big time for the first time since '07 and have actually done some decent business. Mo Bezic and Phil Jagielka bring experience from Everton, and Ollie McBurney will try and show the promise he had at Swansea in the Premier League. Ravel Morrison could be a coup if Chris Wilder manages to get the best out of him, or it could be a locker room nightmare. They have a strong team spirit, but I don't think enough talent is there for them to stay up, even with overlapping center backs. They're surely underdogs, but won't come bottom, as only two newly promoted sides in the last 10 years have done, those being Cardiff in 2014 and QPR in 15. I see the final relegation place being contested between the sides of the M23 Derby in Brighton and Palace. One of them has to be relegated, and for me, I've gone with Crystal Palace. While keeping a hold of Zaha is massive for the time being, I'm not convinced this saga is over, and feel he could be off in January. This would be a massive detriment to Palace, who traditionally start slow in the league. If they have to make up ground without Zaha to survive, I don't see them staying up. Plus, their preseason form has been dreadful and they lack depth at several positions. This leaves Brighton and Hove Albion just about surviving one more year. I teetered with sending them down, even having them bottom in my table at one point, but I seem to have more faith in new boss Graham Potter than most. They brought in several signings from the lower leagues, including Neil Maupay, who will look to kick on in the Premier League after a great year last time out with Brentford. Aaron Moy is a good bit of business on loan, and if the rest of their signings pan out, they should have just enough to pip out their rivals. In 16th, my pick is Newcastle United. They've actually done some business this summer, bringing in Joe Linton on a club record fee. Andy Carroll is back too, an absolute delight to any bored treatment room workers. Their squad is certainly better than last season, but the loss of Ayoze Perez and more importantly manager Rafa Benitez will hinder them. As long as Steve Bruce can keep the negative aura around the Ashley ownership away from the players, they should be able to stay up. For 15th, it's Aston Villa. Back where they belong, Villa have splashed the cash on their return to the Premier League, and inevitably, the Fulham comparisons came storming in. However, a lot of that money has been spent on bringing back loan players from last season. They have spent some of their money on bringing in Premier League proven players like Matt Targett from Southampton, and will hope the promise of Douglas Luiz and Jack Grealish will pay off in the Premier League. They'll struggle a little bit at the beginning of the year as their squad gels, but Villa will have it going by the end of the year and will stay up. 14th, Southampton. None of their players have joined Liverpool this summer, which is good for continuity, although this does mean none of their players are desirable for top 6 clubs. They've slid from an upper mid-table team to a lower mid-table team in recent seasons, and that's where they'll remain under Ralph Hasenhüttl. 13th, Bournemouth. From one South Coast club to another, Bournemouth are now an established Premier League side, which still feels weird saying. Eddie Howe has done his usual astute business, with Philip Billing a good reinforcement in the middle of the park, while Liverpool loanee Harry Wilson will look to make an impact. They will still leak goals defensively, but their attacking trio will more than make up for it as they head for another mid-table finish. 12th, Watford. The Hornets finally have a bit of continuity at manager, as Javi Gracia is back for another season. They've added some firepower to their squad, bringing in Danny Welbeck on a free, and Ismail Assar from Rennes on a club record fee. Teams around them have also improved though, and another mid-table season for Watford is on the cards. 11th, Norwich City. Daniel Farke and Stuart Webber have built a very cohesive squad for the Canaries. They've addressed areas of need in the market and have done it much cheaper than other clubs in this region. Ralph Farman is a great keeper coming in on loan from Schalke. and Patrick Roberts coming in hopes to supplement Timu Puki in attack. This is probably higher than their squad deserves to sit, but I have the feeling they'll have the surprise factor this season and catch some teams out. 10th, West Ham United. A typical West Ham summer, this one. They brought in great players such as Sebastian Haller and Pablo Fornals, but have lost arguably their best player over the last 2 seasons in Marco Arnautovic. They'll remain 10th under the steady guide of Manuel Pellegrini. 9th, Everton. 9th through 4th could be very close this season if the bottom half of the top 6 doesn't get their act together. At the bottom of that scrabble sits Everton. Moise Kean is arguably the best value for money in this transfer window, allowing Everton to also spend on the likes of Andre Gomez, Fabian Delph, and Alex Iwobi. Marco Silva should push them closer to the top 6 in terms of points, but they'll finish 1 place below last season. 8th, Wolverhampton Wanderers. Nuno's boys are coming off the 3rd best points tally for a newly promoted side in the history of the Premier League. This season they've got Europa League football to contend with, but unlike most clubs that sneak into this competition, I don't think it will hinder them much. Much of their squad already has European experience, such as Ruben Neves, João Moutinho, and Raul Jimenez, which should help them deal with both competitions. They haven't splashed the cash as much this time around, but Patrick Cutrone is a promising buy from AC Milan for the future. Like Everton, they'll still drop a position in the table, but the future remains very bright for Wolves. 7th, Leicester City. Champions 4 seasons ago now, the current Leicester side barely resembles anything of their title-winning day. That doesn't mean they don't have the best total package of any team outside the top 6, though. Losing Harry Maguire is a blow at the back, but they've managed to recoup an absolutely ridiculous fee from Manchester United for his services. Brendan Rodgers can make the case for himself for being the best manager outside the top 6, and should continue to guide this very young squad to great things in the coming years, should they stay together. 6th, Chelsea. Like most predictions, I think the race for the last spot in the top 4 will be extremely close, and Chelsea will be one of those teams that come up short. Although behind the rest of the top 6 this season, this one might actually be good for Chelsea in the long run, assuming they end up giving some of their academy products like Mason Mount and Reece James a go due to their transfer ban. They'll also struggle to replace Eden Hazard, although boy wonder Christian Pulisic will give it his all. It'll be interesting to see who Frank Lampard picks against Man United this weekend, and how Chelsea will do throughout the season, especially defensively. 5th, Manchester United. They've identified weaknesses and improved their squad in key areas, as well as any team in the top 6 this window. Harry Maguire will hope to ensure that fans of the Red Devils will never have to see Phil Jones or Chris Smalling again. Aaron Wan-Bissaka from Crystal Palace should be their right back for a decade, and Daniel James is just really fast. Squad-wise, they are a top 4 team for me, but I'm not convinced by Ole Gunnar Solskjaer at manager and their midfield depth, especially without Ander Herrera, so I have them just missing out. Into the top 4 we go, and it's Arsenal. Back in their native land of 4th, I have Arsenal just pipping United and Chelsea. Their attack of Aubameyang, Lacazette, Ozil, and new signing Nicolas Pepe is as juicy as any in the league. Dani Ceballos partnering Lucas Torreira in midfield is promising, but like recent years for Arsenal, the issues lie in defense. Laurent Koscielny is left, along with Lichtsteiner and finally Carl Jenkinson, who was somehow still there. They did improve defensively late in the window, and brought in Kieran Tierney and Sideshow Bob on deadline day. Tierney certainly has more promise than the now aging David Luiz, but both add quality to the back line, leaving no more excuses for Unai Emery's men not to get top 4 this season. On to the most predictable part of the video, the top 3. In 3rd, I have Tottenham Hotspur. While they've certainly gotten closer to the top 2 in this window, especially with the additions of Tanguy Ndombele and Giovanni Lo Celso, I don't see them quite catching him. Spurs fans will hope Ryan Sessegnon ends up becoming the second coming of Gareth Bale, just not the current one. Unless they get sidetracked by another deep run in Europe like they did last season, I don't see them finishing any lower than 3rd under Pochettino. This leaves the top 2 that almost everyone has, Manchester City and Liverpool. When it comes down to it, I believe the order will be the same as last season, which means Liverpool are second. These two are still miles ahead of everyone else, but Liverpool haven't added to their squad that took them to the Champions League. Depth in the forward line and at the back is what will keep them from their long-awaited Premier League title this time around. This leaves Manchester City as the champions for a 3rd year running. Sure, there might be a little bias since I support them, but all the pieces are there for a three-peat. There are leadership concerns following the departure of Vincent Kompany. However, the squad has been strengthened, with the likes of Rodri coming in as the long-term replacement to Fernandinho, Angelino coming back, filling a need at left back, João Cancelo coming in at right back to push Kyle Walker, and let's not forget the Lord and Savior Scott Carson coming in as third choice keeper. It won't be easy, but Guardiola will ensure City won't drop off from any years prior and will take a third title on the trot. On to some other predictions now, and these will be rather quick. For top scorer, I've gone for Mohamed Salah, not a real surprise. Player of the year goes to Bernardo Silva, who will kick on after a strong campaign last time out. Young player of the year for me will be Trent Alexander-Arnold, especially since Raheem Sterling isn't eligible for this award anymore. But Alexander-Arnold had a really fantastic year last year. First manager sack for me will be Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. After the form United ended with last year, Solskjaer will be on a very short leash at the start of the year. He'll just pit Roy Hodgson for me in this race. As an added bonus, I've gone and predicted the Cups. For the FA Cup, I've gone for Liverpool. They're really too good of a side not to be winning something domestically this year. In the Carabao Cup, I've got Man City, as they've won this competition 4 out of the last 6 seasons and like to use it as a springboard for the rest of the season. If by some miracle anyone is still watching, some of the boys have made predictions as well, including the lads from For Pete's Sake. Then again, Gibby has DC United winning it all, so there's that. Well, if you made it this far, thanks for watching, and until next time, see you again.